In other regions, like, user base is not present, right? So so that's one of the advantages of content delivery network, and we had practically seen how quick it was able to fetch our content and cache it on the edge locations, and the response was also very, very good. So that is the content delivery network. Okay. And did anyone try to actually create or upload an image or any content into S3? Have you gone through S3? You can put it in the chat, please. Because these content, whatever I'm teaching you, unless you try it out at your home, it's going to be very difficult. Thanks, sweetie. Yeah, I see you have completed it. So once you get to know what is S3, what is EC2, what is load balancer, what is content delivery network, this is how you can prepare yourself to showcase that, yes, I know. I mean, I've known cloud computing. You will have that confidence built into you, right? So I would say I would highly recommend you to try all of these exercises, what we are telling. Okay. So this would be beneficial, highly beneficial for you to go and appear for any interviews. See, you can say like you haven't worked practically, but you have done this course where you understand the concepts, right? So, okay, I see my free tier account has expired. You can create one more with another Gmail ID. So that's how you can create a free tier account once again. Okay. So moving on for today's session, I'm not going to go too much theory. Uh, we'll also look into the console as well. We are halfway through in our journey, and now going forward, we will have 50% theory and 50% lab as well. Okay. But as I've been provided only 1.5 hour, I would request you to do the labs in your accounts specifically and come back with questions if you're not able to accomplish them. Okay. So today we'll discuss about multiple things. One, the networking. Networking is key. Uh, During our first session, we spoke about what is VPC, Virtual Private Cloud. So we have spoken about uh, availability zones. Availability zones, nothing but data centers, right? So that we wanted to see them in practical, how it looks like. Okay. And by default, I'll give you this insight as well. If you are a network engineer, if you turn out to be a cloud network engineer, they are responsible for creating these components into your account pre-built, okay? Because these are complicated items, and basically network engineers create all of this, all of the networking to you, and give the AWS account to you. But it's not necessary that it's not my job. We can learn it ourselves. I have done it my way, where I have created my virtual private cloud. I've created my subnets. Subnet, I told you, it's basically uh, a CIDR range of IPs, a pool of IPs, whom I am saying like this pool belongs to subnet one, and this subnet is attached with this particular availability zone, which is nothing but a data center. So I'm saying this data center gets this set of IPs, like let's say 1 to 50, and this set gets 50 to 100, and this set gets, and so on, right? So we can see, we'll show you what is VPC, what are subnets, okay, what are the route tables. I would walk you through those concepts as well, VPC. And next, I would like to go on to the very much used service, which is Lambda. I think last week we spoke about Lambda a bit. AWS Lambda is a managed service coming from Amazon, and I told you, right, we need not run our servers 24/7 when we know that load is very low, and when the requests come in ad hoc, then in that duration, I would say we should be using AWS Lambda, because we are built only for that execution time rather than the entire 24 hours. We need not keep that server active. Okay. So I've even also gave some examples on the timeouts. Previously, it was 1 minute, and how they have increased it till 15 minutes. Similarly, with 128 MB was the initial memory, and how they have increased it to 10 GB. So all of that over the period of time. It's not like Lambda has been added with lots of features within one single year. Over the period of time, Lambda has been there for almost a decade, and over the period of time, they have added multiple features to it. So today, what we are going to do is we are going to create a small Lambda code and see how it's going to work as well. Okay. Yeah, let me show you. Okay, let me log out so that you'll understand once again from the beginning. In your case, I think you would be having a default VPC. You can try to log in into your AWS account and see a default VPC. Default VPC is created when an account gets created, and the default subnets are also created. But in organizations, people would not be using default VPC. Rather, we will have our own VPC created. VPC, virtual private cloud, consider that is a logical group we are creating to store our resources into it. Okay. So consider that we are creating a boundary for our resources, because this is a public service provider, right? Cloud service provider. Amazon Web Services is providing computing resources and lots of resources for rent to all the organizations, to all the individuals, and it's allowing us to connect over internet. So it's not just us who is reaching out to Amazon or Azure, but there are multiple other consumers of this, right? Of this cloud computing. So we need to logically group, okay, like my company as a logical group, some other company as a logical group, so that we don't actually accidentally share data. Or I want my resources to be kept private, okay, because of um, lots of concerns or auditing issues, or basically that's a minimal thing to have, right? I don't want my database to be shared with someone else. So if I have a rack of servers, I want this server particularly to be managed to my company. So previously, that is how people used to do. Like, this server belongs to X person, this server belongs to Y person. But now, with the help of cloud computing, it's not like a hardware division. That's also there. I will come to that. But it's more of a software logical unit. Okay. So within that server, this pool, like this much amount of memory, this much amount of space is logically created. And it's like using software, they are making a boundary and providing it to uh, X organization. And they're creating one more boundary and providing to individuals as well. So it's all logical groupings, and that is done by Amazon. So you need not worry about it. I'm just giving an example that, okay, if Amazon has a very big data center, it's not like one entire room of filled with services marked as Broadridge or marked as Hurkey. Okay. It's like we are provided space with logical grouping. Okay. And there are scenarios where you can say, I want my own server to me. In that cases, it's very costly. We call it as bare metal. Bare metal. Okay, so that bare metal is nothing but, based on the words, it's that server is given to you completely, and you can do whatever you want. Okay, but that's not a cost effective solution. It is used only for certain scenarios where there is a highly confidential data, and you don't want to share any resources underlying. So it's like, very few of them opt for it, and they have their own business case for it. So that's also provided recently. Earlier, bare metal feature was not there. Probably 3 4 years back only they have released it, where you can have your own dedicated server, which is bare metal. Okay, coming back. So this is the first thing you have to understand when you are in cloud computing. And this VPC is similar in Azure or Google or any other Oracle cloud. Here we are calling it as VPC, Virtual Private Cloud, and in Azure we call it as VNet, I guess. Okay, so it's all the same components. Naming differs. Okay, so you can see here, this is called a VPC, and VPC would be created with one unique identifier to us, and the status is available. And here I'm saying three siders. Siders are nothing but, when I'm creating a virtual cloud, what are the IPs I'm going to attach to it. Okay, so here I'm seeing three siders, and here I'm seeing only one sider. Okay, so the reason being, previously it was one sider only for the dev VPC, but all the IPs have been consumed, and we are left with no IPs. So whenever we launch any resource, be it EC2 instance, be it Lambdas, it was throwing an error saying like no IPs were there. So we had to reach out to our network team to add additional IPs um, to our VPC. Let me see. Okay, I'm saying /16. Now you can see in my VPC, uh, this is one of the cider which is assigned to this VPC, which is starting with 172.31.0.0/16. And I just wanted to see what is the entry IP and what is the exit IP, and how many IPs are entirely assigned to this VPC. So you can see /16 means 65,536 IPs have been assigned to that particular VPC, and it starts with 172.31.0.0. And uh, where can I see the end? Yeah, it starts with 31. Yeah, here. This is the end, 255.255. So in between, all of the IPs have been assigned to this particular VPC. And it's not that you always need to provide 16/16. It's all again networking. You need not worry about it, but it's a good thing to know. So I'm saying, let's say, if I'm attaching an IP to a server, it's basically /32. We call it as /32, which means like one IP is been attached to a particular EC2 instance or a Lambda or an RDS. Okay. So in general, what we do is we create VPC of /16 or /24, let's say not 24, but /16 or /8. We even have /8. /8, you can see it's like 1 crore 67 lakhs. Okay, these many IPs are there, and this entire /8 is what our organization uses. So our organization is been assigned with /8 cider range, which means like all the instances, all the servers created would be Not just servers, my laptop, my peer's laptop, all of that fall under this IP range. Okay. So if I go select this one, the VPC, which has three siders, let's see siders. Okay. It says like firstly /24. Okay. And the other one is /24. Other one is 16. So 16 was added recently, but previously it was /24. Let's calculate how many IPs for 24. Only 256 IPs were there. Okay. And 256 IPs were provided to our account, and it was not working out for us. So they added one more cider with 256. It is not working out for us because we are launching lot many resources. Okay. 256 would be consumed I mean, within a day or two, because it's not necessary that everyone needs a higher range of cider, but it's because in our project, we are using something called as AWS SageMaker, which is for machine learning, and it consumes lots of IPs in the backend. So that could be one of the reasons why our IPs are consumed a lot. Okay, now we understood VPC is a virtual private cloud. And to this virtual private cloud, we have attached IPs to it. Those are nothing but cider blocks. Okay. It is a group. We are saying like these are the group of IPs which are assigned to this particular VPC. And you cannot overlap the IPs as well. See, this is a different IP set, and after this is complete, only then a different IP set. You cannot have once again 91 0.24. It has to be unique IPs only. Okay, this is all private IPs, which is now part of your organization. So you cannot have an override value, because let's say if I have assigned one IP to you, you can I think everyone knows, right? If you do an IP config, you would get an IP. So that IP is already assigned to you. And if you share the same range with some other server, it doesn't allow because it's already occupied. So that is the reason you wanted to have unique CIDRs here attached to it. And let's go into route table. This is also very key. The route table will tell you basically how my network request would come and how my network request should go out. Okay. Yeah. So you can see this is the entire VPC, and out of which we are actually again making some subnets. So subnets is what I told you, right? It's a again one more grouping which internally contains availability zones. US East 1A is a different availability zone. US East 1B is a different availability zone. These are nothing but data centers. US East 1A is a different region. I mean, US East 1 is different region. US West 2 is a different region, right? So 1A is a different data center. 1B is a different data center. 1C is a different data center. Why we are seeing three? Because in that particular region, we told you, right? We can have a minimal of two availability zones. Okay, in Hyderabad, I've mentioned like we have three availability zones. So in this particular VPC, we have three availability zones, which are like US East 1A, 1B, 1C. Okay. And and within this one, I've shown you like a very big let me show this. We are attached with three siders, right, for the VPC. And those are again broken down into multiple subnets. So you can see 1A, 1B, 1C, and it has its own IPs. And let's see here, this is /26. Earlier, we have seen /24 has been assigned to our VPC, right? So what is /26? How many IPs we are seeing? 64 IPs. So 64 IPs have been assigned to that subnet or within that particular availability zone. Okay. So what happens is whenever we launch any EC2 in that particular subnet, it gets an IP within this particular range. It starts with 172.31.0.0 till 63, right? So if I attach any EC2 instance or a Lambda or a database, it with that particular subnet, okay, then you would be getting an seeing an IP of this within this range. So that's subnet, okay. And in my case, I have like so many subnets, but in real time scenario, it would be like restricted to only two or three. In our case, as I mentioned, the IPs were not available, so we need to attach multiple IPs. Why I've mentioned this is to discuss about lambdas. I'll come back to lambda, but that's very much important to discuss about VPC and subnets, because this is one of the core configurations where you use when creating an EC2, when creating a Lambda, when creating an RDS. Okay. So now let's go back a bit to theory and come back to lab again. I know it's going to take time to understand VPC and subnet, but yeah, I would like you to go over it. I'll send you the documentation from my personal ID, because there are, I know I haven't sent you any documentation because of the contracts and all. So I'll be sending you today with my personal email ID. But I request you not to share anything. Yeah. So we discussed last time about Lambda function, which is running your code without provisioning or managing servers. It's the same thing. Upload your Lambda code and it runs in the background, and you just need to pay for the compute time you use. Okay. Um, Yeah. So what language does Lambda support? Java, Golang, Python, Node.js, Ruby, C Sharp. Okay. So these are the languages where you can write your code and you can deploy it onto Lambda. And I'm going to give you an example what I've picked. It's like Seattle Times uses AWS Lambda to resize images for viewing on different devices. So basically, we mentioned you, right? The S3 is the storage service for Amazon. And for Azure, it's the blob storage. Okay. So S3 simple storage service is where the content gets in. So in good old days, we used to have our server. Inside that server, we used to create a folder, images, and then we used to dump all the images, right? But that's all the legacy stuff. But going forward, I mean, not going forward, even now, we are using these cloud services for storing our content. I also mentioned about Dropbox, Apple Cloud, or iCloud, or other one same again, Google Cloud. So all of these are there. For Amazon, it's S3. So let's say we have different photographs, or newspaper has to publish documents, right? And we are talking about digital magazines. Okay. So digital content, it would be published every now and then. Probably a publisher would take multiple photographs and they would upload it into S3 bucket. That's the first thing to do. Okay. After that, what this particular scenario is doing is, you need that image. Let's say I have 8 by 8 image, and you cannot fit that 8 by 8 image into simple mobile phone, right? Or a MacBook or a laptop. So every display unit has its own pixel resolutions, so which you need to consider to show that image into to the users, end users. So what this application or this example is saying is, once a photo has been taken and uploaded onto S3 bucket, I think the last exercise where we uploaded one photo, right? It's my image where I've uploaded through the console, and that upload can be done in multiple ways. We can do it using command line tools. We can do it using some applications. We can do it using the console. So there are multiple ways of doing uploading the images. So once the image is uploaded, a trigger a trigger is made to Lambda. Lambda is nothing but, consider that as a function which runs code. Okay. A function which runs code, it's like backend. It's also a container or a server, but that's not managed by us. Okay, it's managed by Amazon entirely. So instead of EC2, we are using Lambda here, because EC2 we are managing it, whereas Lambda, Amazon is managing it, and it's the advantages that you are paying only for the execution time. So who is going to trigger the Lambda when an image comes? It need not be manual stuff. You can do it. Like, let's say I have hundreds of pictures coming in, okay, and end of day, let's say my time, 10 p.m., I would trigger this Lambda. What it does is, it is going to take all the 100 images, and then it is going to resize based on the devices list what I have. It would resize for mobile, it would resize for MacBook, it would resize for iPad, something like that. So this is like 100 images are there, and I'm doing it in one go at a particular time, 10 p.m. And I can trigger it manually, or I can have an scheduled automatic scheduler, which is called as, we can use schedulers using a service called as CloudWatch events. Okay. So the CloudWatch events, you can mention like, this particular day, this particular time, I want my Lambda to be executed. It's like, it can be recurring throughout the 365 days. You can write schedulers. You can log into the internet and write down scheduler, and you will get some cron jobs, okay, which will tell you like star. There is a syntax to it. I don't want to go into details. So that syntax will tell you like, this has to run only on Monday or only on weekends, on Monday at 10 a.m., on Wednesday at so and so p.m. So all of that it's a very simple syntax which we need to put, and based on that, Lambda would run. Okay. That is a automated scheduler which we can attach to a Lambda. Okay. Which runs based on that time period. The other one is manually running, which we already mentioned. The other one is trigger. Trigger is nothing but, I don't want to wait to the end of day. I don't want to wait to my scheduler to run probably next Monday. I want it to be instantaneous. Okay. So it everything has its pros and cons. I would not say pro and con, rather I would say use case specific. If I need my website to be refreshed only a week, then only like weekly refresh, then probably end of day I can have this refresh cycle where my photographs would be resized. Okay. But if there is okay, for a magazine every week, but for a newspaper every day, right? So there is a concept called as trigger. What it does is, once you upload a photo into an S3 object, into an S3, it is going to trigger this Lambda. Okay. And then it is going to resize it according to the devices. So it's all automated. So after today's exercise, I'm going to show you an exercise on how to create a Lambda, how to execute a small code in that Lambda. Okay. But I want you to take an exercise where you would upload a photo to S3, and that S3 should trigger Lambda, and that Lambda should tell me what is the file size of that uploaded image. Okay, that would be your exercise for today's for this week. Let me give you another example. Okay, so this is Alexa and backend Lambda, backend S3. What do you make out of it? So I'm sure like most of you have experienced Alexa, right? Alexa, you say Alexa, you say Siri, you say whatnot, Gemini or whatnot. Backend is all this Lambda. You need to understand that because you are making a prompt. You're saying Alexa, switch on the light. You're saying Alexa, uh, play some music. Let's say when you say Alexa, play some music, what it is doing, it is making that request. Okay, and after that this Lambda would come. Okay, in between there are other services. I don't want to discuss about these machine learning services which would understand your speech to text. I mean, it would understand your voice, it would convert that to text. Okay, and it would give you a meaningful text. Okay, and then make that as an argument to this function, Lambda function. It says like, hey, give me, you mentioned play some music. So if it is some music, that's fine. But if you're asking for a particular song, the exact keywords would go, and this Lambda is actually going to search it into the S3. S3 is where all the songs, let's say, we are talking about T series or we are talking about Amazon Music. Amazon Music has a whole bunch of songs library in their S3. Okay, as I told you, S3 can store all the media content. So all of that is present over there. So Lambda makes a call with a prompt saying like, I need so and so song, and it responds back with uh, that song details, and it is again responded back from Alexa. Okay, and you are hearing the uh, music. So similarly, there are multiple commands which you can make through Alexa, and you can in the back end, Lambda is the core functioning logic which is making decisions, and all these decisions are what written by us. So here you need to understand Lambda function can be written by a cloud engineer, which is us, or an actual developer as well. An actual developer would be more, they would be writing more sophisticated code, which is belonging to their business application. Okay. But when I say a cloud engineer like us can also write uh, some code, this is for our operation purpose. Okay. So let's consider this scenario. This is probably something a developer of this application has written, who understands, okay, what is the image type and how to resize it and then save it back again. All of this, probably a developer is the one who is responsible. And this is also someone who is a developer who is writing this code. But let's say I am coming from an background where I am responsible for maintenance, where I'm responsible for cleanup. So I need to get a report where I need to know like when was my S3 bucket accessed last. If an S3 bucket is accessed for not for a week or a month, then I consider that S3 bucket to be not used by anyone. So I want that to be cleaned up. Okay. Similarly with let's say if I'm getting requests to my load balancers or not. Okay. So all of that I can do using Lambdas. I'll give you a short example now where you can see how my Lambda is going to get the file details or the count of S3 buckets, etc. Let me log in back. Okay. I'm sh are you seeing my screen, which is the Chrome browser right now? Okay. Let me share. Okay. So we are going into Lambda, which is again a compute service. And you can see in my account, I have 58 Lambda functions, and this is one particular account. And you know, right, I have access to multiple other projects as well. They have been using Lambdas extensively. Okay. And there's a lot of functions which we can create. Okay. Let me create a function. And there are like use a blueprint, use a container image, but we are for this example, I'm doing it from the scratch. Okay. And this is the runtime. I told you, right? What are the supported programming languages? Ruby, Python, Node, Java, .NET. So I'm selecting Python. The choice of your of the language is up to you. And now I'm going to, there is something called as execution role. We will have a separate session on IAM, which is nothing but identity and access management. But for now, I'm saying create a new role with basic Lambda permissions, which we will again update it. Okay. There are a lot of other advanced techniques as well. Enable code signing, which is like, I cannot put any content from internet or something which is vulnerable, right? Even if I develop something which is vulnerable, I need someone to review it. Previously, how we used to do reviews, we used to have a peer who does the peer review. But this code signing is an approved software, or this is entirely inbuilt coming from AWS itself, which is actually looking at your code and looking for any vulnerabilities. Okay. Tags, I told you tags is for an identification. So let's say who is the owner. This is for an identification. Enable VPC. So this is key for you. So if I don't select this option, what happens is, as I told you, this Lambda is a managed service. Okay. And managed service means all the backend server is managed by Amazon. So if I don't select this option, Amazon creates this function. Again, as I told you, Lambda functions are nothing but in the background, they are nothing but a container. Okay. If I select Python, then it's a Python container. If I select Java, it's a Java container. So this container essentially would be placed in any available resource, in any available server, let's say. Okay. Lambda, I mean, AWS has huge sets of databases or huge sets of servers, right? I mean, it's the one who is having, who's providing a lot of data centers to us. Okay. Compute power is provided to us by Amazon. So it has an algorithm to find out, okay, is there any available space with me? And it actually puts that Lambda function in that particular available server, okay, where it has this, where it matches the exact configuration of 1 GB or let me show you where is that. Mm, yeah, I'll show you that configuration as well. So if the configuration matches, then it would execute that Lambda function in that particular server. Okay. What's the advantage of it? Advantage is it's cost effective. It comes at very minimal price, very minute price. Okay. But people use that particular option when the data is not critical. Okay. If the data is critical and if it's confidential, then we need to select this option, enable VPC. So you can see VPC is the one which I showed you, right? This is the dev VPC, sorry. And which subnet? Subnet is nothing but I told you again, which data center, um, which IP range. If I'm selecting this particular US East 1A, I'm saying my Lambda function would be having an IP, or it would be stored in this particular data center, and it would be assigned with an IP which is in this particular range. Right. Security groups, it's a firewall basically, who can hit my Lambda function, and from my Lambda function, where the outbound request can go. Okay, it's both two ways. When we are talking about security groups, we are talking about two things. One is ingress, inbound, ingress, all are one and the same. Okay, and the other one is egress. Egress, outbound are one part. So inbound, what I'm saying, who can hit my Lambda function? Is it just me, or is it just my laptop? Is it just my project IP space, or is it my entire organization, or is it anyone outside as well? If I'm creating a Lambda function which can be triggered by anyone outside, I can create that. I just need to allow that public IP space. So if I have to allow to entire world, which is like 0.0.0.0, which means like entire world, I'm allowing them to hit my Lambda. But do not make that mistake, because once that Lambda is exposed, if someone knows that, okay, this person has allowed Lambda to be hit, just imagine if all the requests are coming to my Lambda, and Amazon doesn't care. I mean, there are certain services which would stop from making all those requests, but those are anomaly services, but those are again paid ones. But let's say all those services are not enabled, then everyone tries to hit my Lambda, and I'm screwed. End of day, I am the one who is responsible for paying the amount billed for that Lambda. So we have to be very careful in selecting security groups. That's one point. And this is not only applicable for inbound, but also for the outbound. Outbound, when we are saying, so let's say my Lambda needs to be connected to S3, or my Lambda needs to connect to a database. Consider that way. So I need to allow my outbound only to that particular database, not to anything else. Because, for example, if I'm having an application where I should not connect to prod database, which prod database is confidential. Okay, you cannot connect to it. So if my security group is not properly written, and if a rogue engineer, or if a novice, or a new resource hired into my team doesn't know about these restrictions, and if they try to reach out to production database, and if they make some update query or an insert query, which they should not be doing, that's a big red flag, right? So you need to ensure that that's all taken care with the security groups. Creating a function. So this function got created 4 seconds ago, and this function got an ARN. Okay, ARN is nothing but a unique ID. Again, it talks about like AWS and what is the service. If it is Lambda, it is Lambda. If it is EC2, it would come with EC2. And next comes with the region. We are in the North Virginia, which is nothing but US East 1. If it is some other region, you can see the identifiers are coming here. Those identifier would come. And this is nothing but my account number. And you can see my account number here. Okay. And this is function, which is nothing but my Lambda function. And what is the Lambda function name? Okay. So this is how ARN would be created. Okay. Amazon resource name would be created. And this is not just for Lambda. For any service created in Amazon would have an ARN. Okay. So I was talking about configuration, right? Okay, firstly, let me run this one. So I have created a small Lambda function which says like return hello from Lambda. Okay, return hello from Lambda. So let me test this one. So it executed. How many times, how much time it took? Uh, Build for 3 milliseconds. Okay. And then max memory used is 33 MB for this one. And the resources configured for my Lambda is I'm only using 128 MB. Okay. But there are scenarios where I need my Lambda to be uh, my Lambda to be executed for a longer duration uh, and probably for multiple other purposes where longer duration and longer memory is required. Let's see one of that use case. So this is hello from Lambda. And if I put hello from hello to Turkey, then what I need to do is I need to deploy. So for every change, I need to click a deploy. Lambda console has been changed. So I switched to the old editor and I click test. It says like hello to Turkey. Okay. And all of this, it's going to logs as well. So this is key. We want our function logs to be stored in particular location. That is where we talk about CloudWatch, and that's for our future session. But I'm going to show you um, right now how to see them. So these logs are very key because you need to know how your application is performing, right? You will be getting to know based on logs only. This is required for your debugging sessions. So that's the reason CloudWatch log groups. The logging service is nothing but CloudWatch for Amazon. Okay. And we how many times we invoke the Lambda? 2 times till now. And you can see 2 times it has created a log stream. And what does it say? It says like it started, it executed, and this is the uh, memory duration. Build duration is 19 ms milliseconds. Memory size is 128 memory, but max is used is 33 MB. Okay. Now let's create something else. This is very basic, right? So let's complicate things. So I have a pre-built code. I told you, right? As being a cloud engineer, you are also kind of responsible for operation duties as well. Okay. Operations on your cloud resources. So this is a Python. What it is doing is basically we have S3 buckets. I've shown you S3 buckets in the past or in the previous session. So you can see it here. You can see I have 32 buckets. Okay. And all these are buckets and it has lots of content. Okay. And I want the size of each bucket, the creation date, all of that. I need to send out a report to my management, let's say, because I want to see what buckets are consuming a lot of data and all of that operations thing, basically, we wanted to showcase in a Power BI report saying like we are using S3 storage X amount, and these are the buckets which are consuming a lot. Whether we need to take any decision out of it, all of that needs to be done, right? So in that particular scenarios, we would be required to create certain functions, and dev team would not be there. I mean, dev team can help us, but it's our responsibility to create these Lambda functions as well. Again, during your start, you need not know all of this. You will get to know once you get into the job, once you start working on it, then you can try things. But I would recommend you to create a Lambda as well for the session. Okay, so here what I'm saying, the first function is get a account info. Okay, we will speak about Boto 3 as well. Boto 3 is for Python. I mean, if I'm using Python, if I'm if I need to connect to Amazon SDKs, software development kit, we use a package called as Boto 3. Okay, they have released, Python has released a package called as Boto 3, which has functions to connect to our services. Okay, so I will not go in detail of explaining this one, but we will I mean, this comes with experience again, but we will try to understand what this function is doing. This particular function is trying to get the account alias or ID, which is nothing but my account ID. Okay, this number. Why we are doing it, we will see. This particular function is trying to give me the account ID. This particular function is trying to upload a file to S3. Let's consider that. This particular function is trying to upload a file to S3. Now, let's consider for Lambda, the starting point of the Lambda is Lambda underscore handler. This is defined and you can change it. You can, if anyone is familiar with Python, main would be the starting point. In Lambda, we have this Lambda underscore handler as the starting point, entry point. So firstly, it comes here, okay? And then I'm saying account name equal to get account info of, which is the top level function, which is giving me that account name here. And then buckets data, I'm taking an array, which is an empty one right now. I'm buckets equal to s3 dot list underscore buckets, which is like listing all the S3 buckets. Okay, how many ever I have, I'm listing the S3 buckets. And after that, what I'm doing, I'm iterating it over each bucket. I'm taking, this is a list, right? I'm going over each bucket. I'm saying like processing bucket name, so and so. Okay. Total size equal to 0, object count equal to 0. Initially, I'm doing that. And finally, I'm getting what is the bucket name, what is the total size, how many count of files are there in that particular bucket. Okay. And then I'm appending that into one more array, which is buckets data. Okay. So all of that, I'm doing it for, let's say I'm using a for loop. Okay. So it is going over all the 32 buckets, which is there in my account, and it is generating a report. Okay. And then we are making it, call it as report.csv, and we are writing it into the CSV report. And once the CSV report is generated, what we are trying to do, we are uploading that CSV into S3. Okay. So this is what we are trying to accomplish in this code. Let's see to what extent we can achieve it. Okay. Because we would face hurdles. We will try to solve them on the go. Now, when I click test, it says first thing, list account aliases is not allowed for the user. Sam Herky, this is the role which I have created. I when I'm creating this Lambda function, I asked to create an execution role by itself, right? So it has created an basic execution role, okay, with certain permissions. Let's see what permissions are there. And by the way, I am is something which I told IAM would be the next session. And this is IAM, what I was talking about. Basically, it's nothing but what permissions my Lambda would be having. Okay. In this particular scenario, my Lambda has been provided with basic permissions. Let's see what basic permissions this Lambda function has. It has permissions to create a log group. Log group is nothing but CloudWatch log group. So we opened CloudWatch, right? So that is the permissions it has, and it has other permissions related to uh, create network interface. So this is nothing but attaching an IP to my Lambda. My Lambda also requires an IP. So this permission says like attach, create a network interface and attach to this one. Now, our results say that this person does not have, or this role does not have permissions to get the account name. Okay. So let's add that permission right now. This is how you attach the permissions. Sorry. Based on the service which you are choosing, I'll come to that. So right now I'm trying to get the account ID. So account ID using a service called as IAM. So IAM is what I'm using. And what is it through error? It mentioned list account aliases was missing. So let me see if list account aliases. Okay, so this is what missing is what it told. So I'm keeping it minimal. Next. I'm just giving a policy name, create policy. Okay, and this is attached to it. Now let's hit enter again. Let's see if it works or not. It failed. So it says like another error. It says this particular role does not have list buckets, list all my buckets permission. So let's add that permission as well. Like to add it in this one itself. This time it's S3 because it's trying to list all the S3 buckets. And you can actually restrict, give very or scope down permissions, but just keeping the time into consideration, I'm just giving to all buckets. It depends on what you're trying to do. Are you trying to get the size of one bucket? Then you can provide only that particular bucket name. But in my case, I'm trying to get the size and objects of all the buckets, right? So I have to give all resources because this is an operation activity where I need to get the size and number of objects in all the buckets. So let me hit test. Okay. Now it gave me another error. What did it say? Task timed out after 3.05 seconds. So I told you, right? In this configuration, you can see what is the timeout. This Lambda can execute only till 3 seconds. After that, it's timing out. So there are scenarios where my Lambda should be executed for more time because my code is taking more time. Okay. So in that case, what I need to do, I need to edit. I need to increase the timeout. Let's say I'm going to take it till 5 minutes. And the max is 15 minutes. Earlier, the max was 5 minutes. And now they have increased it to 15 minutes. And probably as we speak, there is a reinvent session, not session, I wouldn't call. It's a very big, massive event in Las Vegas right now. Unfortunately, I was not part of it this time, but uh, they might increase this timeout from 15 to even bigger one. So let's hear. Just look into AWS reInvent in the YouTube. You will get tons of content, and that's really good. Okay, so let me increase. I told you, right? Memory allocated to this function. I can increase till 10 GB. I'm just increasing it till 1 GB right now. Save. Trying to test it. So in the background, what it's doing is it's trying to iterate all over the buckets, okay, and going in each and every bucket, and it's trying to get the size of the objects and also the count of the objects present in the entire S3 bucket. So it's a report which we want to generate to our higher management. Okay, so it's going to take time because we have I don't know, this account I haven't logged in for a while. 32 buckets are there, but still lots of content. So it's going to take time. So let me create one more function in the meantime. And this might even time out because we have kept timeout as 5 minutes, right? So 5 minutes, within 5 minutes, if it doesn't uh, give me response, then it would time out. It's going on. I'm redoing the same configuration once again. I'm just trying to give you another example, which is quicker. And I'm trying to increase this memory. This is a new function, so I need to. Okay, it succeeded this time. And you can see hello from Lambda, but we will see if you look at the logs carefully, this is a small function when compared to the previous one. It says like total number of buckets, 32. Let's go over. I I hope you can see the screen. Can you see the screen, please? Can one of you type in the chat? Yeah. Okay. So basically what we have done is we are trying to get the number of buckets in this particular account, and we have seen the number of buckets we got is 32, and you can even confirm it S3 and S3. Let me go there. Okay. It seems like I've logged out. It's our organization has kept 1 hour as the session time also. Every 1 hour we need to re-log in, but it depends on for you. I don't think it would be logging out, but for us it would. Just one of the security measures. So I've re-logged in, and you can see 32 buckets. 32 buckets is what it's saying, and that is what we got even in this Lambda function. Okay, so this one you can see in the background, the task timed out after 303.10 seconds, because what we are trying to achieve is kind of like this is a bucket, okay, and it goes internally into this bucket, and it is going into this particular thing. Again, it is going into this particular thing. So it's doing there's a lot of repetitive iterations which it's doing. So it's going to be um, taking more than 5 minutes or more than 10 minutes. So we can see if we can reduce something from this function on the fly, because this is going to take a lot of time. You either need to run it on an EC2 instance or a Lambda function with 15 minutes. But even 15 minutes, I doubt, because this particular account has lots of S3 buckets with lots of content into it. Let's see if we can reduce something over here. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all of this. Okay. And then I'm going to uh, remove all of this. Let's see what happens. The previous Lambda, what we did was we tried to get the count of the S3 buckets present into it. Buckets equal to S3 dot less buckets, length of buckets. It's not, basically if you do it in a IDE, you will be able to see when you hover over what are the available attributes it has, and one of the attribute we are trying to see is the length. How many buckets are present, and basically we got 32. And now what we are trying to do in this one is we are doing the list buckets, and we are iterating it, and we are trying to get the bucket name out of it to be print. So let's see. I did something syntax error. What did I do? That probably I've closed it properly. Something which I've removed from my previous function. So it's not allowing me. Yeah, very good. So it executed. Now you can see all the 32 buckets are there, right? It has given all the 32 bucket names here. Okay. So it earlier what we were trying to do, we were going into each and every bucket, we are going into each and every file, we are trying to get the size of it, and seems like this particular account has lots of content into it. So that is the reason it was timing out even after 5 minutes. So what we have done is we have reduced almost most of the content, and we are just doing printing of the bucket names. Okay, you can see we are iterating it over all of this and we are printing out the bucket names. So that is the reason you can see it has print all the bucket names which are present in this account. So you can play with this Lambda function, not just for operational activities. As I mentioned, if you are a core developer, then you can do a lot of logical functions over here. Our previous examples, which I've shown you, is talking about once an image is uploaded into S3, it triggers a Lambda function, and then it is going to resize the image it into to fit to a specific device, right? Be it MacBook or iPad or something like that. So there are multiple use cases which we can do. And I want you to come up with uh, for a next exercise. So you can see there is an S3. Okay. You can have, let's see. Uh, so there is a bucket. I want you to create an event to a bucket, which means like you upload an image or any file to that particular bucket. I'm sure like you have already created a bucket, right, on your own. So upload a file to a bucket, and what it needs to do is it needs to trigger a Lambda. A Lambda should be very basic. Uh, you just need to get the file name, what you have uploaded. So here you can see I'm just giving you an overview. If you go into the bucket properties, if you scroll down, you will be seeing something called as event notification. Okay, create event notification is what you need to do. You just need to give a name prefix, like you want. Basically, prefix means like you want this event to be triggered for a particular folder or a particular file type. So you can leave it blank. These are optionals. And then you can say like whether it's going to be for all the newly created objects or something which is deleted. Let's say if someone, we need to be notified when someone deletes something. Let's think of that scenario. So we can, here you can see all object removals. If I select this one, if someone deletes something from S3, it triggers Lambda. So here we'll select this one, let's say, okay. And all of this is not required, but finally we are saying the S3 can trigger multiple things. Lambda function, SNS, queue. SNS is notification service to directly send out an email. SQS is a queue service where you can put that message into a queue. Okay. But in this case, let's say I'm using a Lambda function. Okay. Lambda function, you need to choose from your Lambda function ARNs. So I'm going to say, okay, it says like you have more than 50 Lambda functions. If the resource you want is not listed, enter the Lambda function ARN. So let's see, this ARN is what? Okay. So I'm going to do not just this one, all object create, save changes, name. The region in the ARN does not match the bucket region. Okay, probably I've chosen a bucket which is west. Okay, I cannot do that on west because I've created a lambda which is on east. So let me see something which is in north. Okay, let's see this one. Please. So I want you to do this as an exercise. This is very much required to understand two things. One is Lambda, other one is CloudWatch log groups, other one is S3 and notifications triggers, which is very much important. So Sam Harkey, let me put here one more thing. I'm not going to make a lot of changes to my code, but I'm just going to print something of event. So this is my bucket objects, upload. Add file. I uploaded something. So I uploaded this. The intent is my Lambda should be triggered. Okay. How would I know? Let's see if my Lambda got triggered or not. Basically, I'll go into the monitoring. I'll go to the logs because this is something which I haven't triggered it manually. Rather, I've triggered it via an S3 event notification. I uploaded something into S3 and from S3, it is triggering my Lambda function. Yes. So this is triggered. How I can say that is, you can see I have written print of event, right? In the code, I've written like print of event, and that event is coming from my S3. Okay. And after that, again, I'm trying to print all the buckets, which is there. But here you can see this is the second part, which we had done previously, printing all the buckets. And here you can see event source is S3. That is the one. Region is US East 1. Okay. And something here, you can see this is the bucket name, which has triggered it. Okay. And this is the object, what I've uploaded. So in ideal scenarios, what I will be doing is I'll use my programming skills to pick all of these details, okay, in from my code, and I'll do lots of operations on it. But I'm just showing you like how a trigger would work, right? Now my Lambda is triggered without manual intervention. I've just uploaded an object into it and I've got this information. So think of that Seattle Times use case where they're trying to upload an image into their S3 bucket and it has to be resized, right? So think that I have uploaded an image into S3 bucket and that details of that image has come to me. And once that is there, I can get the content of that image and resize it according to that device. So that is how I can play with Lambda. I think we are over time this time, but yeah. How was the session today with Lambda? Did you like it? Yeah, we can create Lambda function in Java. Yes. Is the cost associated with duration? Yes. Any feedback on the Lambda session? Thank you so much. So I would definitely request you and encourage you to create a Lambda function. Whatever we have shown today, just try it on your account and that would be good. So next session, we'll talk more about IAM and CloudWatch. Okay. Alekia, you there?
Sampath, Swati here from Harki.
Hey, Swati.
Yeah,
How?
hi. Yeah. Thank you so much for this wonderful session and very informative too. So I hope, ladies, you enjoyed this session. And with Sampath, we have another session like on next Thursday. So be available, everyone.
Yep. Thanks,
Thank you, Sampath.
everyone. Thank you.